Hello, and welcome to Cut the Chit Chat, a podcast that gets to the point with people I find interesting. I'm your host, Anna Moyers, and this episode is coming to you from the interweb between Raleigh, North Carolina, and Kigali, Rwanda. Today, our guest is Manning Callan. Manning, you are so welcome.
Yay!
So, the reason I find you interesting is because how deeply you love God and how you are excited to share Him through your life and in your work. You are always willing to share your knowledge, expertise, and love for God to those around you, even strangers. I really love how you use what you do for a living and your mind for business to create change in our world and to spur other business leaders on to lead with the kingdom in the forefront. So, thank you so much for being here and for being interesting.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. It's awesome that you do this.
Thanks. So just really quick, Manning, maybe you can just tell us a little bit about what has brought you to the place of your life that you're currently in.
Yeah, of course. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm originally from South Carolina, and I'm trying to think. It's a big question when someone asks about your life. Like, oh, how do I condense this? I would say I'm originally from South Carolina, and I used to be in product marketing with a technology firm, and I absolutely love technology. I love marketing. I love corporate America. I love everything that corporate America brings. But a few years back, I would go on mission trips to Uganda, and with my current church in South Carolina, or at the time the church I was attending in South Carolina, and we would go on these mission trips, and it was very difficult to go and experience other parts of the world and then come back into this corporate America lifestyle because they're vastly different. And I just knew God was calling me to do something different, like something else. And how old? I was maybe like 27 at the time. And if you live in America or you know anything about our culture, it's very counterculture to quit your job and let go of retirement plan, because at the age of 22, you need to know how much you're going to have saved by 60 and plan it out every year, and let go of medical insurance and all of those things. And so it was very countercultural, but I knew what got me was I not only would regret it, but I knew like the urgency I felt in my spirit of going to figure out what it was that God was like had for me next, or whatever he wanted to do. That is what led me to quit my job and move to the UK. And so I guess in 2017, I think I moved to the UK to do a leadership academy with a church that my church had connected with. So with Freedom Church. It was an incredible year. It was very different than what I had been used to, because I was used to this like corporate America grind. And in the UK, I couldn't work. And so I was doing this leadership academy and doing some volunteer work. It was a very humbling experience, but I learned a lot, and God just taught me so much through that. And then I ended up staying in the UK an additional year, which was incredible. And in that time, God really started birthing in me this whole concept of kingdom and business. And you can't separate the two. Like business is ministry and ministry is business. And I had never heard of this. I always thought that if I was to be in ministry in any aspect, I had to be working full-time for a church. And that was never something I really wanted to do, because I really enjoy working. Not saying people who work for the church don't work. They do. They definitely do. But I just never seen like a position, I guess, within the church that really excited me. And I wanted to make money at the end of the day as well. Not saying that people in the church are poor either. So anyway, so God just really started like breaking down the barriers of, no, you can be in business and it be ministry, and ministry is business, and you take learnings from each and bring them into the other, because what business does is it allows us to bring in finances for the kingdom, but allows us to reach people that we're not going to reach behind the walls of a church. And so my second year in the UK, God really started doing that in me. And then I met my now husband, who is amazing. But I met him, and we both moved to America. We both moved to Raleigh, North Carolina in September of 2019 to help plant our first Freedom Church location in the US. We've been here ever since, and now we're expecting a little baby.
And congratulations!
Yeah, we're really excited about it. So that's really what brought me to Raleigh.
That's cool. And so what do you do like right now with your time?
Yeah, so I still do a bit of marketing, but primarily I'm in real estate. And that was a whole nother God thing,
Mm.
um, where it was during the pandemic and I just heard him whisper real estate. And I have no background in real estate. Don't really know anyone in my family that's ever been done real estate, been part of real estate. But it was really amazing because I'm one that if I hear God speak or say something, I'll just go in and do it. And
Yeah.
so but I had at the time I was married. At the time, I'm still married, but like we just gotten married a month before,
Yeah.
and we didn't have a lot of money at the time. So for me to like invest in real estate, it's quite expensive to invest it up front.
Yeah.
And I had to make a PowerPoint presentation for my husband and show him why this is a good idea.
That's
And
great.
I didn't know if I would get like I didn't know. God just said it. So to me, if I was single, I would have just done it. But now I had to like go and convince him to allow us to use
Yeah.
it. And it was just quite amazing. It was such a God thing because I'd never been a good student. Like I'm not book smart by any means, and I'm not a good test taker.
Yeah.
I'm strategic in the way that I think, but I've never been a good test taker.
And boy,
Um,
that real estate test is no joke. My dad had to take it a few times. He's a real estate agent too.
but the crazy thing is I passed it the first time. I cried.
No way. Oh my gosh. That's almost unheard of. Congratulations.
Yeah. And I was like, that don't tell me it's not God, because let me tell you. And I did
Amen.
study, I worked hard and all of that. However, I am not a good test taker. So I thought this was going to take multiple times. And it didn't. So I have only been in it almost a year, and I haven't even done that much marketing. And God
Mhm.
just bring me people in houses, and it's just been awesome. So it's been a really cool experience. But yeah, so I'm in real estate now, which allows me to be flexible to build a
Yeah,
church and help with planting the church here.
for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so cool. Real estate is such a great way to even bring ministry, even involve, and you're working with so many different people who are going through so many different life changes, good or bad, And so it's such a good time to have, such a woman of faith in your life to come alongside of you in those times. So that's good. Good for you. Well, thanks for sharing that. So how we do things here on Kata Chit Chat is I have a jar here full of hard-hitting discussion topics. And since we're not physically together, I will just pick them out. And you and I will just take turns on answering them. They're questions that mostly pertain to both of us. We might just have different spins on them. And so we'll just discuss them until the time runs out. And that's it. So that's Kata Chit Chat. So let's get going. Sound good?
Yes, I can't wait.
All right, cool. All right, so question number one. Okay, so what are some obstacles you've overcome in living and now being married cross culturally? And I'll let you start if that's okay with you. So obviously, I'm not married, so I'm just going to answer it from living cross culturally.
Uh, my husband's British, and the funny thing is, it's not an obstacle by any means. The first one isn't. The language barrier. Although we both
Yes.
speak English,
Mhm.
I don't understand his sayings half the time or words that he uses. I'm like, what is he on about? Um,
I'm
but
very good
that's
friends
fun
with a
one.
British person, and it's hilarious. We give each other a hard time all the time.
Like we are having a baby boy, but we had a name for a baby girl, and I won't say the name, but we both pronounce it different.
Yeah, that's
So
not gonna
I'm
work.
not sure when we have a girl and we name her because neither of us say it the same way. But so that's just a funny one that happens kind of often. Or
So
like,
on that really fast on how they pronounce my name in the UK. My name is Anna, and the way they pronounce it, like in preaches, it's honor. It sounds like, and so we talk about honor a lot as a church, and so it sounds like my name. Like someone will be preaching and say honor, and I'm like, yes, you say my name.
that is so funny. I love to
It's
add
so
an ER to things.
yeah, especially on A's like the ER. So anyway, sorry for interrupting, but it's so
No,
true.
it's yeah. So that's just a funny one where it's like, what are you saying? The other one is more like a bit more serious, but we both have great personalities about it, so it's fine. but it's just a different way of life. Like living in America, it's different than living in the UK. And, every July 4th, he says Happy Rebellion Day. And
Yes.
there is that streak of Americans are more outspoken. They're more, they won't just like succumb to what the government says. They will find things out on their own, and they will fight for things, and it's just different. Where at the UK, I feel like they are more willing to agree with the government. What they say, they'll go with it. Where in America, it's like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. And so, of course, being American, you have a little bit of that in you. And him being from the UK, so at times, especially through 2020 and things that happened, we clashed in views, and that's okay. But that's definitely something like, how do we overcome it? You recognize the differences, you recognize like how you grew up is different. Like compare our medical system to theirs, night and day. That's he doesn't understand at all.
I know. Neither do most of us, so that's okay.
It's so hard, but you've got to realize the differences and it's okay. Like realize it's okay that it's different, and try to understand each other.
Yeah, that's great. I would say for myself, mine is pretty similar actually, is realizing that my way is not always correct. It's not right or wrong. The way I've grown up doing everything, the way I think, the way I behave, it's not right and it's not wrong. It just is my way. And so, for example, timeliness is massive. I have now lived in Kigali, Rwanda for so long. And if you go out to a restaurant, we're talking that's a minimum of a 2-hour affair. Nobody's in a rush. But if you're in the United States, you're in, seated, eated, packed, ready to go in an hour, like at least, Yeah, or less. And the other day I was, just home in America, and we were out like for Father's Day eating at Olive Garden, and we were barely sat, and our food was there, and we were leaving before I was full. I didn't even get to ask my family how they were, And so some of it is good. Like I'm obsessed with being on time, and I really appreciate when other people are on time, and versus like I want to chill and have a good time with you. So timeliness, but expectations, but they're not right and I'm not right, and they're not wrong and I'm not wrong. It's just like changing our expectations, and that being open to different ways of doing things. So I think that's probably been one of the biggest obstacles, but one of the greatest things that I've learned in my time abroad.
No, it's good. I think one of the things that Dan has done the best being in America is he has just adapted to the culture. First trying to resist the culture and being like, he could be like, no, this is not how it's done. This is how it needs to be done. This is the right way. Instead, some people, if you saw him, you would think he was American because of the way he dresses, not the way he speaks, but the way he dresses, and even like the way he acts sometimes. He's like, yes, let's go to a football game. This would be great. I think that's important within a culture. If you move, or if you're talking with someone, is it's not being so resistant to the way that they do things, but understanding it's just different and recognizing it's different and trying to not only understand it, but even like consume and absorb it at times, because it is nice to sit down and have like a long meal because you actually get to engage with someone versus fast, quick-paced culture that we're part of.
Yeah, and that's so beautiful. You can, if you really want to become one with the culture, just stop fighting it and just, adapt it. So that's really good. Good on him. Good on him. All right, we finished our first one. Great job.
Yay, that was a good one.
Yeah, I like it. Okay, so this one's interesting, and something you have to deal with significantly sooner than I have to deal with as you are pregnant. So this question says, what are some mistakes that you hope to keep your children from making? And what are some that you're okay with them making, and why? So my turn to go first. So I was thinking about this, and again, I think my mind will change when I am in that actual position. But the first thing I thought of was finances. I really have learned a lot of good things and things I've done wrong. in my finances. I'm really grateful. I was like a full grown adult, probably 3 years into my career before I even got my first credit card. My parents, we only pay our cars full out. Like we don't do payments or whatever. Yeah, but I also didn't do a very good job at budgeting. Like I even took those financial peace university classes or whatever. And I'm just like, it's something I know how to do, but I'm too lazy to do. I often treat myself much more than I should. I didn't really start saving until I knew I was going to go live abroad. I prepared that whole year ahead of time to start saving money. I knew I was going to be like more of a missionary type educator where I was not going to be paid anywhere near my American salary. So I started saving a lot. But I think the thing that I would want to keep them from is financial struggle. Not that they should be discluded in the struggle, but they should be included. Let's talk about it. Like, let's talk about our family finances, give them a small allowance so they can understand financial importance of taking care of yourself. But I think some mistakes that I'm okay with them making is like some of their relationships. I think there's a lot to learn, whether it's friendships or even dating relationships. I want to be there for you. I want to be by your side, but there's a lot of mistakes that you kind of need to figure out how to do things and how to navigate like interpersonal relationships. I think that's going to come with getting hurt and hurting people. Like, and then let's debrief what happened here and how can we learn to be better for the future. So those are the two that I think that came to my mind right off the bat. How about you?
Those are both really good. I would say the first one, it's not that I want to keep them from this. I actually want to like add something to them. Which is I felt like when I was younger, I didn't try and experience a lot of things. And I was one of four and there was a lot going on. So I don't blame anyone for that. And I don't look back and regret it either. But, I never played soccer as a kid, or I never went camping or hiking or, tried different international foods. Like I never had Indian food before. And there's just some things like that where I want my kids to be able to experience. I had other amazing experiences. Like we traveled throughout the US, so I've seen a lot of the
Yeah.
US. And I was able to like really go deep in some sports, which was awesome. But I would just love my kids to all get experience different types of culture, different types of activities, different things that really just expose them to help even like create their personality and to help them figure out like what their mold is and what their gifting is. The other thing that's more of like a mistake I don't know if I necessarily made, but I want to make sure is really on their emotions, that they are able to understand why they have certain emotions and express themselves in a healthy manner and learn how to express themselves in a
Yeah.
healthy way. And one of the things that Dan's really good about that I've had to learn is talking through things. So if something gets us angry, I'm like, I can buck up sometimes and say, let's just move on. Where
Yeah.
no, we will talk through it and figure out like what was the problem. And so that's something I would love my kids to have, is like understanding their emotions and why, because emotions aren't bad.
Yeah.
It's only bad when you don't know what it is. So that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the best things like Disney, Pixar, whatever did was to create that movie about emotions that like helps
Yeah.
give them names and helps give them like whatever. Yeah. And I think understanding like it's okay to be sad, it's okay to be mad, but it's not okay to just stay there, specifically for young boys. I think, I've talked about this before that oftentimes in our society, we just say like, no, you cannot cry. Like, no, you cannot, whatever. And it's just like puts those negative viewpoints on certain emotions. And it's like, no, 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 no. These are important. These are healthy. How you deal with them, though, that's
Yeah.
the big issue. So that's
Yeah.
great. I like that.
Or anger. Like I think a lot of people either get too angry and they don't know
Mm-hmm.
how to control it, or they never get angry because they think it's bad. But anger is not a bad emotion. It's just what you do
Yeah.
with anger.
Yeah.
That is the bad, that is the bad thing.
I love that we follow a Jesus that flips some tables,
Yeah.
So having some righteous anger, that's good. So
It's so true.
awesome. All right. Here we go. Okay, so one of the first times we hung out virtually, you were a guest on my
Yeah.
book talk over the summer, which was so cool. We read a book about being single. So this segues into the next question, which was, and your single period wasn't too far away. You just said you had just recently gotten married. So what is one of the greatest lessons that you've learned in your time of singleness? Like, what's some maybe advice you could give to people who are currently in that
Yeah.
space?
Oh my goodness, so many things. um, I never liked when people said to me, "Oh, just wait till you're married. That will happen when you're married," or "You can't understand it yet because you're not married," or yeah, just that whole thing of like, I just hate that comment of almost like, "You can't relate yet. You're not married. Sorry." It's like, "Oh, thank you. That's kind." Um, it's just it's a harsh comment. And I think I
Yes.
one thing I've noticed lately is I think a lot of people say things because someone else said it to them.
Mm,
So while they don't necessarily actually think like wait till you're married, someone else told them that and said they just say it out of reaction.
yeah.
And that was one thing I couldn't stand. And part of my personality is when someone tells me no, it's the best thing that can happen to me because it just makes me fight for the yes. I don't know why I have that personality.
Come on.
And so one thing in that though I learned is you don't have to wait to be married to do things. You don't have to wait to be married to save money to buy a house. You don't need to wait to be married to understand the call that God placed on your life. You don't need to wait to be married to travel or explore or make friends or what, like you don't have to wait to be married to get a dog, like to do these things that society will just say, oh, just wait. Oh, just wait. But also my singleness didn't shape me. I remember I would have a couple of opportunities and people would say, oh, you're single. So we really want you to do this because, you live this great life and you pursue things and it's because you're single. And that
Mm,
always rubbed me the wrong way because I just don't believe that your singleness, and even being married, it shouldn't shape who you are. It shouldn't shape your identity. It shouldn't like you should just pursue the calling God has for you,
yeah.
single or not, like married, single, whatever, and that it shouldn't be like, oh, now she's married, so now she's thriving. Um,
Yeah.
so I would just encourage anyone that if you're single, keep running your race and don't
Wow.
slow down and don't wait. Like, what are you waiting for? And I remember I would be blocked by like fear of, well, what if my man's here and I'm over in the UK and I never meet him, or if I do the wrong thing. And it's
Yeah.
like, don't wait, like keep running. Allow God to like craft your identity, craft your character. And then when you
Yeah.
get married, like you're stronger than maybe if you would have waited and didn't allow things to happen in your life. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
For sure it does. And, that's pretty much what I would have said too, of the, I always thought that myself like living abroad and working abroad would come after I was married. And then I was like, no, that's dumb. Why would I do that? Like, why would I wait and defer my dreams on a timeline that I know nothing about? Like, why don't I just continue to live my life to the fullest and keep pursuing what I feel that God has placed on my heart? And then maybe I'll find him on the way and cool. Like, you know what I mean? So I think that was something that was really big for me. But I think something else that I like is kind of you alluded to is what can you be doing now to work on your character? Like to become a woman that your person is looking for. Not to, change who you are, completely, but like are you, someone I think even Pastor G did say something like, are you the person the person you're looking for is looking for? And I was
Yeah.
like, shoot, convicted, And so, yeah, there's a lot of things about myself, even the way I manage finances. Like, I have a lot of money in debt from my bachelor's degree that I would like to take care of. I'd like to be financially stable. I would like to, grow in different areas in my character. And so, working on that character development of myself is going to be pivotal in this time, because I would also hope that my future significant other is doing the same thing, and trying to better themselves as a person. And so I think that working on character development and just, really enjoying life and pursuing your dreams now is massive. And so I think that's the best thing I can say about singleness is like, look, it's a season for a reason, and it may not be, and you kind of need to be okay with that. But what can you be doing in that meantime? And so where you're not just sitting there counting down the days until it's over, but you're really like look back and be like, dang, that was so cool,
Yeah,
So
and it ultimately boils down to how much do you trust God with your life?
I
How
know.
much do you trust Him to show up and speak to you and guide you and direct you and even guide you to the right person? I never would have imagined I would have met someone in the UK,
Yeah.
um, ever. Like I never would have imagined that. And
Yeah.
but God did, and God knew, and it's it just ultimately comes down to trusting Him and trusting in not only His timing,
Mhm.
trusting in the person, because oftentimes, if someone stops coming to church or someone stops being involved, 9 times out of 10, it's because they've started a relationship they shouldn't be in,
Yeah.
and like settling for someone that's just not the best. And
Yeah.
it is hard to wait, and I totally get that. I've never want to discount that because it is definitely hard
Yeah.
to wait.
It
But
is.
as long as you continue to pursue what you feel God calling you, there is that excitement and adventure, and your relationship with God is so deep that it helps sustain the waiting, if that makes sense. Like it helps push you through the waiting.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's how I would just encourage anyone in is ultimately trust God for everything that He has and just push forward.
Yeah, and something else I'd like to add, I think, too, you know, is how the capital C big church plays a role on singleness too. I think a lot of times, uh, I've been in several different churches, and a lot of times churches can put undue pressure on single people. Like, when are you getting married? Why aren't you married? Like, are you dating? How's this? And kind of all up in your business, and puts this like unnecessary pressure. And oftentimes, even in that book that we had read, it talked about Christianity can make sometimes unmarried people feel like JV Christians, and that like you're on the bench, you're the second string, and then once you are married, then you can go do like ministry, then you can lead a church, then you can do whatever. And something I do love about the church that we're a part of, and even specifically my location, is that now twice it has been led by single men, and like even our other campuses have been led by single people. And it just really means a lot to me that, like, no, your God can still work in you and work through you, whether you're married or not. Now, don't get me wrong, the partnership of male female, it's pivotal and it's massive, but it doesn't mean that you must wait till you're married in order to be an effective member of the body. And so I think that that's super important. And all of my Christian friends out there, let's be sure that we're supporting our single friends with love and kindness, and not you'll be there one day. So come on.
That is the worst when people would say, you'll get there, you'll understand one day, but until then, you can't understand. I'm like, okay, thank you. But yeah, one thing that I did that was practically very helpful is I was, and I still am very goal oriented, but I always make goals and push forward with them of like, how much finance do I want to make, like save up in a year, wanting to
Yeah.
run a marathon or wanting to try some new food or read a book or whatever it is. I was very goal oriented and it was really fun. Like it
Come
was
on.
so much fun. And it was, my relationship with God was just so lovely. Like it was, we were, and we still are obviously very close, but it was just, I remember having just some of the best times and talks with God, like
Come
in pursuing these goals and pursuing these dreams and not waiting, not waiting to run a half marathon with someone else, not waiting to
on.
travel to the West Coast or travel to Ireland. It's like, no, find someone in your circle who wants to go and have fun now. And
Yeah,
it just really was amazing.
that's so great. Singleness, man. Woo, is real. All right. Okay, so next question is, what have you learned or maybe what advice do you have when you switch your business from just a world-focused model to a God-focused model?
I feel like I could talk on this all day.
All
um,
right.
this is one of my favorite topics. I would say first, whatever your business is, whether you're in business or you want to start a business, is get vision from God for it.
Cool.
Like ask him for some vision. How does he want to use your business? Some of our businesses, we have a business ministry within Freedom Church called Momentum, and our heart is to reach people and our heart's to educate and inspire people, but our goals,
Yeah.
so we can see kingdom businesses being used for, is to reach people, but to gain riches for the kingdom as well.
Come
And
on.
so I think within each of our businesses, your business is either a vessel to reach people, it's a vessel to bring in finance, because there is a spiritual gift of giving. A lot of people ignore that one. There's definitely a spiritual gift of giving. There's a big capacity. And we need givers. We don't just need tithers for the 10%. We need people who are going to look at the church and say, you need a new building. You need a bunch of new equipment. You need X, Y, and Z. I've got hundreds of thousands of dollars. Here you go. Use it.
Amen. We receive it in Jesus' name.
Then you've got businesses that are going to be both. They're going to reach people and they're going to bring in finance. And it's just recognizing what is the vision God has given you with that business. Because ultimately, even within a church, it's like, okay, we got to reach people, but then you do have bills and stuff that you need to be paying for. And a business is no different. The marketplace is no different. Jesus showed up in the marketplace over and over again. And one of the best things you can do after seeking God and asking him for vision is recognizing in your mind that business is ministry. And because how sad is it that if you only attend church once a week, yet you're in business 5 days a week? Like, what's the point? Something's wrong. But if you actually in your mind can start going, no, my business is ministry. Like, this is my ministry place. This is where I go and connect and encourage someone. This is where I pray for someone. This is where I bring someone a coffee. People don't see generosity in the day-to-day. They don't see kindness in the day-to-day. And that's a big outlet in the marketplace, is to go and be kind and generous and loving to people. And so one of the best things you can do is, it's a mind thing of stop separating the two. Stop separating church on a Sunday from work Monday through Friday, Monday through Saturday, whatever days you work. Is don't separate the two. See them as one. How you show up to church on a Sunday is how you should show up to the workplace on a Monday, ready to encourage, love people, pray for them. And asking God for the vision of what is it he has for your business, what is it he has for your work, and what steps you need to take to get to the next level. Because at the end of the day, God has a plan for each of us. It's going to be different. It's going to look different, but we need to be in the lanes and we need to be in the areas that he's called us to. Because, some people are called to politics. Some people are called to education. Some people are called to, the bank industry, the technology industry, whatever. You just need to run in that lane, because you're going to connect with people that I can't connect with in the real estate world. But I'm going to connect with people in the real estate world that you can't connect with in the education world. And it's just recognizing the lane God's called you in and bringing ministry into it, and stop separating the two. There's so many things I just prophesy over someone and they don't even know I'm like speaking life over them, because I don't have to announce like, hello, just so you know, I sense this from God. It's like, no, I'm going to speak life over you and you're not even going to know it, but it's fine.
Come on.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And just like you said, for me, I'm not necessarily in the business world. I am in the education world, but I think the same rings true in that I think you just need to decide, like, what's first? Is it your job? Is it your career? Or is it your God? And so when God is first, you will figure out ways to include him in what you do on the regular, and even just showing like the fruits of the spirit, like patience to people, showing love and forgiveness. And those are things that you can show every day in your work, even if you're not a diehard Christian. You can just show people love in various forms. And I think that that's sometimes overlooked. And I think that that's, now I'm at a Christian school where I'm almost like expected to show God's love And it almost was easier before when I didn't have to show God's love. It came naturally. So now my brain has to overthink it and overcomplicate it or whatever. But um, no matter whether you are, waiting tables or checking people out of the grocery store, like there is a way to include God in what you do. But is it include God, or is it that you are like starting with God as the base and then, doing work on the side? You know what I mean? And so it's just like reprioritizing. Um, is it work first and then I'm going to try to fit God in? Or is it God and then I'm going to fit work in? And so just reprioritizing, reshuffling of your thought process. And that's way easier said than done.
Yeah, and it is rewiring everything you ever learned. Because even
Yeah.
I would say, where you just said you weren't in the business world, you're in education, I would say that is business.
Mm.
And I think I would even want to replace the word business with marketplace ministry. Of
Mm.
if you're out in the market, if you're out in the world in some capacity, generating
Yeah.
income, connecting with people like that, you are in a position to
Mm.
reach people. You're in a position to connect with people. You're in a position to be light into such a lonely and a dark world.
Yeah.
And I agree. I think even with what you were saying, it's you have to make a choice to not separate yourself from God when you step into the workplace, but to bring him in with you. And
Mm.
once you do that, how often on a Sunday can you connect with someone who's crying and you speak life into them, or you encourage them in some way? I
Yeah.
remember when God first spoke to me about this, I was working with, used to do some business coaching, and I was working with someone who was a non-Christian, and she started opening up about her personal life. And it was almost like I turned off the faucet of hearing God's voice. And I was like, okay, like, she's not a Christian. And he was like, no, 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 no. You don't turn me off. Like, you listen to me. I was like,
Mm.
wow, okay. And that's what started changing. And I didn't have to say to her, like, I've been praying for you nonstop. I, um, this is what I feel God saying. Like, I didn't have to say those big Christian words. I just had to literally sit with her, hear what she was saying, and rely on the Holy Spirit to give me questions to prompt her or encouragement. And she opened up so much, more
Wow.
than she opened up with anyone. But she knows I'm a Christian. She knows I'm different than other people she's worked with because of God in me. So I don't have to make this big announcement. It just is I chose to keep the faucet going. It's like, hear
Yeah.
God. So
That's
that was really
that
cool. So that's all when it started for me. But yeah, I'm very passionate about the subject.
well, that's great. And I think all too often, my education in the United States, you keep church and state separate. Like you keep education and religion out unless you're educating about religion and stuff. So that also has been something massive for me. But I look back at the teachers I had in high school and I could tell you which ones were Christian because of the way they treated me and they loved me. And I was like, though they couldn't tell me, preach to me about God from at the front, they were preaching to me about God in the way that they loved my fellow classmates. And I think that's everything. So
It's
come
so
on.
true. It's people will notice. And even if you may be in business for 45 years and it's your last year in business, and there was the one person that year that God needed you to go through those 45 years to get to the
Yeah.
one person on year whatever,
Mm-hmm.
to connect with them and to be a light with them.
Come on. It's worth it for that one. Come on. All
True.
right. Next one. Okay, this will be interesting. How can we, as older women, I feel very weird calling us older women because, I mean, we're not that old, but how do we as older women help younger women fight for purity in today's world? Ooh, that's a tough question.
It's so good though. I
Yeah,
can jump in because I'm passionate about this.
great.
Um, and I've been reading all of these books as well on it. And I was just reading a book the other day that was talking about the correlation between social media and depression and anxiety. And the more someone's on social media, the higher the depression and anxiety is. And
Wow.
I know you spoke about purity, but one thing that I found just like in conversations with women in particular, younger women as well, is their purity is jeopardized the more they're on TikTok. And
Really?
Yeah. And when I talk to people, and it's not for everyone, because some people have their set up to where they're just like dog videos or
Yeah.
what I'm thinking, but it's a sexualized platform. It's,
Mm,
a lot of guys can't even go on it because you just see girls in workout clothes, which is a trigger, or you see these
yeah.
like you just see these very sexualized images. But it's the same for women, because you go on, and when you see that and you see that your body doesn't look like that, then you compare and
Mm,
you look a certain way, because we're told that if the more Botox and the more injections that you have, the more guys want you. The bigger eyelashes are, the more guys want you. That's what the media tells us and shows us in images.
yeah.
And so one of the ways we can do that is cutting down time on social media, like cutting down, especially if it's it's being honest with yourself is, and particularly with TikTok, it was Instagram, but specifically with TikTok, I've seen it over and over again, where someone's purity is jeopardized,
Mhm.
but it it stems from their TikTok usage and what they see and expose themselves to. Because I could go in, I'm sure you'll have tons of stuff to say as well in this one, but even with relationships, like, if there's someone I know who's jeopardizing their purity just because they want to be in a relationship and this guy is not good enough for her.
Yeah.
She desires to be in a relationship more than she desires to be in a relationship with God and pursue what he has and pursue what's best. And so there's obviously like that protecting of relationships and not just dating to date.
Yeah. So good. Yeah. I mentor a group of like now they're going to be seventh grade girls, and they are on TikTok a lot. They know every single dance because they are like dancers, and so they enjoy it. But I'm also like that, like that's cute that you're only there for dancing videos, whatever. But I know I follow like three people, and most of my videos are like, funny things about Christianity, like just like funny Christian videos, and I still every once in a while see something. I'm like, I don't know how this got here, but keep swiping. And yeah, and I think like once you're on that website, that platform, there's a lot of things that you can't really unsee or feel, and like you said, like you see all these people you admire in relationships or doing fun things with other people, and even friendships. You're like, wow, that person has all these friends, all these followers, and I don't have any or a few. And that, comparison is the thief of joy is really a big deal. But I think for me, where my purity was at stake, or in even just like my mental health, even my making wise decisions as a person, not just purity, but even like when it comes to just making good decisions and having strong convictions, was always having a strong mentor or like woman who was pouring into my life. And I've talked about this before, but I just can't like thank the people who have been that person for me enough, because you have talked me off many a virtual cliff, or proverbial cliff. Um, and I think that that's not valued enough in these upcoming generations as it is before. Like I probably mentor maybe besides those girls at school, two or three other young ladies. And, I have solid relationships with their family and their parents. And I understand like, what are the things that you would like me to talk to them about? What are some things that, you know, we're on the same page with how I help mentor their kid. But when it does come to things of like relationships or purity or boys or all their different feelings and thoughts, I'm able to be pretty honest with them. And I think that's where I would like to really impress upon this point is that honesty. Like a lot of times I think parents are either awkward about these conversations or they um, like avoid them, or they just say no, you're like, it's a monopoly terms, go to jail, go to directly to jail, do not pass go, do not collect $200, like absolutely not, this is a hard line, we don't even speak about it. And I think like having those difficult conversations of like, look, here's why we don't do these things, here's
Yeah.
here's, or like, if I was impure in my life, like here's how this actually affected me, and just being honest with these kids because they're so much smarter than we give them credit for. That like, hey, let's get honest, let's get vulnerable about this conversation and this situation. And I think if we avoid, it's going to get talked about somewhere else. And so, how do you want to control that narrative? And as a parent, it should be you, but bringing in people like mentors is also a massive help. So, yeah.
Such a good point. We often just tell people, no, no, don't do that, don't touch that, don't be that. But we don't explain like the why or the like the harm that it could cause.
Yeah.
And it's true. If they're not going to get the answer from you, they will get an answer, and they might find it the hard way, or they might go online, and that's never a good place to go. But yeah, it's true. Kids want to know the answer. They don't want to just hear no, because that doesn't make sense.
So the question I ask all of my guests is, what is something about today's world that like angers you, frustrates you, and what is it that you are doing about it, or you would like to encourage the listeners to do about it? Love to hear from you.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Something over the past 2020 was definitely a hard year, I think, in many ways. And one thing is the negativity of social media, the negativity of the news that we consume and that we listen to, and how they have different narratives that shape the way we think or what we should believe or what we should do, how we should respond to things. That's something that I've just noticed has really instilled a lot of fear and anxiety within people, to the point of, and it doesn't matter what political side you're on. I'm not talking about politics by any means. I'm just talking about in general. To the point where we have people in America who are buying food for 50 days in case like an apocalypse happens or something. I don't know. Or I just heard of someone yesterday who bought food for 250 days and has it stored in case something happens. I don't know. But what God keeps showing me in scripture is how much he talks about a spirit of truth and a spirit of falsehood, and what we listen to matters. And he talks a lot about, and I've been writing down all the scripture that keeps coming up, but I've been writing down all various scriptures that talk around. The first one was in James, and it's James 1, it's towards the end, I think 27, and it talks about religion that the Father accepts is to like love orphans and take care of widows, and not be overcome by the world. And that just really spoke to me of, we can get so bogged down in what the news is saying and the media is saying, and this fear and anxiety, that we forget about orphans, we forget about widows, we forget about loving our neighbor. But what we're called to do is love our neighbor and not be so consumed by the world, and not be so transformed by what the world is saying and what's happening in the world. We're forced by this news all the time. But over and over again throughout scripture, if you start opening your eyes to it, you'll see how often, Jesus says, don't be overcome by the world. Don't, talks about renewing your mind. Don't be transformed by the world, but renew your mind. And so many things like that. And so I would say I'm just on a journey of really processing that and like writing that out and walking through that of, how do we not be so transfixed by what the world is saying and telling us to do? And how do we come out from under that and literally just focus on Jesus and his kingdom, that it gets us through, that we're not bogged down by this fear, we're not bogged down by anxiety, but we actually can like look to Jesus, see him, see clearly. And honestly, it releases people from fear. It releases them from anxiousness. It releases them from having to have the right answer. We have no idea what's happening in our world, but we don't need the right answer. We need to just love people and be like Jesus and continue focusing on him. So that is something quite big, but it's something that I've been processing and working through the past couple of months, I would say, that I would love to share with people.
Yeah, come on, it's so true. And honestly, I think practical steps are like cutting out your media, cutting out like the different things. Like it's time for some spring cleaning. What are the voices that you're letting speak into your life? So come on, that's great. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with me and for just having a great conversation with me. That's all the time that we have for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in with us. And thank you so much again to my guest, Manny Callan. Thanks for being interesting and getting to the point with us. We'll see you guys next time here on Cut the Chit Chat with Anna Moyers. Until then, make good choices and be good people. And remember, God loves you. Bye.